Hi, everybody. Welcome to Caffeinated Terrier Talk. I'm Ben Shankman, and with me today is
Laurie Nielsen.
Laurie Nielsen. We are both authors. We are here as members of Caffeinated Terrier Press, a Connecticut and Massachusetts local authors co-op that I own the tiny half fake publishing company that we publish our work under. So we're here today to talk to you about a number of different things. Now, that being said, author Neil Christensen is with us, so I can talk very briefly about something because I want to make sure that it gets out there. Not that anyone other than us and author Neil Christensen also. Wait, is Nick still on? And Nick and his Full Chub Book Club, which I love that name for the record. Like I followed Nick before reaching out to him to see if he'd be interested in checking out my books. But like the name alone on something called the Full Chub Book Club, I'm like, well, that's clever in an entertaining way. So that being said, let me hop back on the official soapbox for a second. So today, an episode of Neil Christensen's it's like a series. He reads chapters of his book Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, which is like a thriller, like noir, hard boiled, like MC kind of book.
Mm.
So what he's doing was is something very special, frankly, and I was very glad to be a part of it. Is he will read, he will narrate the chapter, and then he will have a follow-on discussion with another author who who like offers critique of the chapter or feedback. So it's like a really cool way for like not only does he share the chapter and he reads it, which I love audiobooks,
Mm.
but then having another author on to talk about the chapter was such a good idea. I like jumped
Mm.
on the chance to do it, and I think my chapter is chapter 5, and we talked about that. It's a great book. I need to finish the rest of it so that when Neil has his like end of book like shebang, he's gonna have a bunch of us back, and then we're gonna talk about like the overall book. But it was a delight, and I got to be vaguely pedantic about body mechanics, and
Oh,
not like in a bad,
okay.
not in a bad way, no, but like
Oh, you
it's
weren't
the
like, actually.
actually when you break an arm, no, it was more like, so the nice thing is I didn't have a lot to nitpick about. Like the book is very well written, and so I got to talk about things that I felt could have been a little bit stronger. And one of the things that I get stuck on in fiction, and this is going to get into the topic that we're going to talk about, that I was going to have you announce at some point. So actually, let me pause. Laurie, what are we talking about today?
Um, what are we talking about? Where we get inspiration for our characters from? Was that it? I only suggested it yesterday.
It was. So,
Okay.
but also just in general, I would say where do we get inspiration? And
Yeah.
one of the biggest places that I get inspiration from is real life. And I have enough experience. Like I'm no expert, but I know enough about things like the body mechanics of martial arts and
Mm.
wrestling and whatnot. For anyone who doesn't know, which is everyone, no one knows. Well, Tanya knows, but Tanya's not here. I and Laurie, like we used to study historic European martial arts, now,
Hmm.
affectionately known as HEMA,
For years.
back before it was cool.
I can kick your ass. I can't kick
And
his ass.
we actually did a fair amount of like wrestling and dagger fighting, which has a lot of the mechanics that we were talking about. So,
That
so
sounds weird to say out loud.
it does. Look,
I
we're
we learned
authors.
we learned a lot of fighting stuff, mostly swords, but yeah, also hand-to-hand combat,
Hmm.
staff, daggers, um,
Yeah, pole arms, all sorts of
pole
stuff.
yeah, pole arms. And then I very badly sprained my wrist right when I was just about like, okay, I'm ready to actually use this and fight people and you like apply this knowledge against our biggest guy, Andy. I
Hmm.
was like, I'm ready. And then I hurt my wrist and I couldn't do anything.
Hmm.
That was really frustrating.
So in the chapter in uh, hey, good. So yeah,
Mm,
Neil, who did his own share of dagger work. So I will
nice.
say, if you did rapier and dagger work, the dagger work that we did was more. So it's rondelle daggers, which is like the really long, pointy ones that you're supposed to use to get into the gaps between armor, which really
Oh
ends up
yeah.
lending itself very well to the kinds of like arm locks and things that, ironically, we talked about in
Mm,
this episode of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. I'm just going to keep saying the name, Neil, because it's also fun to say. But yeah, so like I got to talk about things like, so if we're talking about like, so here's where it gets challenging. And when it comes to inspiration, it's a little tough because sometimes Laurie, if I say the rule of cool, do you know what I mean?
no.
So in fiction writing, and I think especially fantasy writing, if you if something is cool, if something cool happens, you give
Hmm.
it like more suspension of disbelief than you might normally because like it's it's cool that this is
Okay.
happening. And so the rule of
Hmm.
cool is if it's cool, it can work.
Oh, okay.
And so like this is where the pedantry of some readers, and specifically
Mm.
like we ended up talking about it too because one of the other things that we touched on was the mechanics of firearms.
Hmm.
There are certain readers that if you get something wrong, God help you, because they will find your error and then like skewer you in a review that you didn't know that
Hmm.
the magazine of a 1975 Beretta 9 millimeter didn't hold more than whatever. Like if you get it wrong, God help you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when it's nice to have like a first person perspective as like the author is the narrator,
Hmm.
because then I can be like, he was holding this, well, I mean, it was a gun, but like I don't know a lot about guns. So you don't
Yeah.
have to be like the omnipotent narrator. You don't have to be like, and it was an
Yeah.
AR-15, and I know that that doesn't stand for actually rifle, you know.
But so there was nothing. Again, the good news is there was nothing wrong with what Neil did in the book. It
Mhm.
I got to dive into things because there wasn't a whole lot to critique. Like it was
Hmm.
a very well written chapter. I read up to chapter 5, and I enjoyed it
Hmm.
thoroughly. So like I got to talk about smaller things, but the thing that we talked about as far as like the main character breaking some dude's arm, it was like the way that it happened. And this is where like it'll take me out of a book
Mm.
if the physics of the body movements is too rule of cool. It's the
Mm.
same thing like
Yeah.
you're watching a movie and like someone who isn't like super powered like throws someone 15 feet is like that's
Yeah.
just not I don't and like and
Uh-huh.
it wasn't that severe, but the idea is just like we bring our experiences into what we're both writing and what we're reading,
Hmm.
and we have to be careful with that because also sometimes getting too nitpicky in the writing of something will actually be more detail than the reader needs. So like Is just because I love describing the body mechanics
Mm,
of an arm bar doesn't mean that anyone actually cares, and they really might just want to hear me talk about how the bones went pop, and like that would be enough.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely like when there's something cool that's like one of my hyperfixations, I gotta try so hard to not just spend an entire chapter describing that thing of like, well, they're gonna want to know what it looks like, and like, oh my God, cause yeah, the TISM in my second book, she takes a train, and like so much of it's gonna happen on like the subway and trains, and I'm like, but there's trains. Yeah, I gotta not go on a whole autistic like train thing because I
I
do love
mean,
trains. It's there.
you
It's genetic.
you can though, like, but yeah, I mean, hi Anne Rice, let me describe my coffin in 5 pages or something. Like that's like one of the
Yeah.
most common egregious description type things.
Yeah, I just ended up saying, and then we talked about trains. I had to. I had to do it because otherwise it would have gone on too long. I don't know a lot about trains. I just really like them. I decided not to research them because I don't want to be that guy.
As Neil says in the comments, you mean like Sheldon?
Hmm. I decided to know a little bit about a lot instead of a lot about a little. So I have small collections of a lot of different things, and I know a little bit about a lot of topics, but there aren't a ton of things that I know a lot about because, yeah, because then I just turn into that guy and talk way too much about whatever that topic is. And that's annoying.
So like,
Jack of all trades, but master of none.
yeah, but like the rest of that actually, that's the hmm,
Yeah.
just
Neil's
like
making good points.
no, 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 but just like the customer is always right. It's supposed to there's
In
another
matters of
half.
taste.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
that
so
that came from Henry Selfridge of Selfridges of London. It was
mhm.
the customer is always right in matters of taste, meaning if she wants to buy an ugly hat, let her buy the ugly hat. I've got that locked and loaded. I work customer service.
Yeah. So just a reminder that the second half of the Jack of all trades, it's Jack of all trades, master of none, which is usually used as a way to like beat poor generalists like us. But the actual quote is, but oft times better than a master of one,
Hmm.
because knowing a little bit about a lot is so useful.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot tell you the number of times in my adult life in the last few years that me knowing a little bit about something that I learned 5 years ago has like been critical to my success in some moment.
It's so weird where random knowledge will get you.
Hmm.
And yeah, it comes up a lot when you're writing. Like, oh, I know about these things. I'm just going to put them in this book. It's just going to, all this background knowledge is going to go into what you're writing. And that's part of, like they say, write what you know. That was kind of what came together into like, I had this idea, I had these germs of ideas, and it was all like, I have this random knowledge. How can I put it all together? And it just sort of put itself together, like little pieces all falling into place.
It's so funny in my first book, My Boss is the Devil. After it came out, I would occasionally get people asking like, "Oh, like how much research did you do?" Because like there's so much detail, and I was like, I don't have the heart to tell people like I didn't do shit. Um, no, I researched like things that I needed to, but I knew so many tidbits
Mhm.
about Christian mythos, about the city that I was writing in, New Haven, because
Mm.
I lived and went to school there. Like,
Mhm.
I wrote, like you said, writing what you know is something that is often touted as like key to people making engaging fiction.
Mhm.
It's also what led me to both enjoy reading and writing urban fantasy because a lot of it is about like it's what we know.
Yeah.
Um,
And what you don't know, you can make up if you're writing fantasy.
mm,
Like my book has these fairy creatures, and yeah, there was some research. There was some like, what does the folklore say? What do some modern? What if some modern people come up with a lot of it? A lot of my research came from like Brian Froud and his fairies books, because and like the Jim Henson stuff, and especially the second book is inspired by Labyrinth. So I was looking a lot of Brian Froud stuff because it has that kind of the goblin stuff and those things. So I was looking at that for the first book, but I knew that this is where I was going. So it's a lot of it's kind of inspired by that. But then it's also that's just a jumping off point. So I'm going to make the knockers be what I want them to be. I'm going to make the dwarves be what I want them to be, but also based a little bit in folklore, because it can't be completely made up on your own, or else everybody's going to be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Um, but some of the geography of what fairy is, that's my playground because I haven't been there. I don't think, you know.
Let me
Then you get to make it up.
let me drag a comment in from Neil, because it goes directly into what we're talking about. So we talked about writing what you know, and he
Oh
says that
yeah,
writing what you know isn't about just
emotional
writing
experience.
only your
Yes,
specific experiences, but
right.
taking your emotional experience
Mm-hmm.
and extrapolating it into other situations. And that's absolutely
Exactly. Yes.
100%, Neil. We
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, like, they say that readers make good writers, and that, like,
Mm.
you won't write well if you're not if you don't read. But, like, I'll also say that I think some of the best writers come from people who have experienced life. Like,
Yeah.
it's the joke is that we're all just writing our trauma, but the reality is we we understand how so many different facets of life feel and how
Mm-hmm.
we experience them, that we're able to take that and use that to, like Neil said, extrapolate that experience into other situations. Like, imagining um, try imagining writing about someone going to the theater without having ever been to the theater. It's
Mm.
like the like, or a concert. I have this visceral memory of being in the front row of a concert in Hartford, Connecticut, and just, like, the pounding of the music and the vibration of my chest, and
Mm.
trying to imagine writing about that if I had never experienced it before. Um, it's like, well, yeah, I don't have a good analogy that isn't. I mean, there's, like, Steve Carell's character in The 40-Year-Old Virgin trying to describe what it is like to feel a person up, and it is absolutely the worst thing that has ever happened ever.
I have not yet seen that movie.
It's it's entertaining. It's actually, like, it's better than it sounds. It's not actually like a
Okay.
creepy guy movie.
There's so many movies I haven't seen. Um, but yeah, it's like I wouldn't write about going to Paris because I haven't been to Paris, but I could write about New York City because I fucking lived there. And so yeah, and yeah, it's the first book takes place in my neighborhood. Um, and I was like, well, the third book, do I want any of it to take place in Ireland where a lot of this stuff comes from? No, I don't, because I've never been there. But, it can be, some of it can take place in this one little isolated village that nobody else has been to.
Yeah, I will say, and I was going to launch into exactly, again, Neil in the comments. I say, Neil, I don't know if you're set up, but, like, if you wanted to join us on stream, let me know.
Mm,
But you could write about Paris. The
mhm.
challenge is you would need to do a lot more research to make the place believable,
Right.
but you definitely have the feeling of what it is to be in a big city, a big metropolitan
Oh,
area.
yeah, that's
So,
true.
like, that you have,
Yes.
and so you could
Hmm.
extrapolate that, and then
That's true.
reading enough travel guides and doing enough Google Street View, like, you could.
That does come in clutch.
Oh my God, I lived in New Haven. I still use Street View to go, like, check stuff out when I need to look at places for my book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say you totally could. But the difference, again, in the if you've never been to a big city, imagine
Right.
trying to write that experience in any big
Yeah.
city.
And I saw it was a couple years ago at this point, but I saw one of those, and it was like the cautionary, like the reason why we say write what you know. Someone was writing about a small town, and they'd clearly never been to a small town. It was like a small town in the South, and they were writing about a 10-story apartment building. Um, and the small town in the South was supposed to have like a population of 10,000 people or something like that. It was like, I, have you ever been to a small town? Like it just the things that they put in the small town made zero sense.
Yeah.
It was just, oh, what kind of small town are you writing about? It's stuff like that. Like you have to know what a small town's actually like.
Yeah,
Like growing up, they told us that Fairfield, Connecticut was a small town, and it is not. It has a population of, I don't know how many, 20,000, at least 20,000 people. I don't know. There were 1,000 people in my high school. It's not a small town. That's the population of a small town is 1,000 people, and there were that many people in my high school. It just, or was
six
there maybe even more than that? Yeah,
65,000. Sorry, Fairfield, Connecticut in 2024 is estimated to be 65,300 people.
you're even reading Stephen King to your children for their bedtime story. Okay,
Thank you
I'm
for
glad
thank you for
that that's
stopping in,
accessible.
Neil. And yeah, I mean, we don't know how old Neil's kids are. Maybe they're like, I don't know, maybe you're reading Eyes of the Dragon, which is like one of the weirdly more accessible to the younger kids. But
Hmm.
yeah, thanks for stopping in, Neil. We really appreciate you contributing to the conversation.
Yep. um. So yeah, what were we? We were going to cover something.
We were going to talk about where we get the inspiration for our characters from, but we kind of dove straight into just kind of where does inspiration come from, and then
True.
of that, like what do we draw upon for our writing.
Hmm.
But we can dive back into the character piece, because that
Yeah.
I think is we probably both do some similar things. But why don't you start us off? Where do you primarily get your inspiration for your characters?
It's a mix of places. Some of them are from real life. In the first book, I mean, the main character is basically me, but younger, and a lot more impulsive. I spend a really long time agonizing over decisions. She just kind of jumps straight into everything. She's always just like head first. Um, Sarah, her best friend, is based off of an actual Sarah that I knew. I brought visual aids. Um, I brought visual aids so I can show pictures. So now I just have to bring them up on my little tablet. So Sarah was my friend Sarah, who looks really blown out in this, but that was a high school friend of mine. And I very much simplified her story. So she dies on the first page anyway. So she's dead for the entire book, but she's also in it a whole bunch because my main character can talk to dead people. And and then her boyfriend, Sarah's boyfriend, who's also in it, is like an amalgam of a bunch of people, like my bad boyfriends, a terrible coworker that Sean had, my husband. Um, he's like a mix of a bunch of people. So he's just kind of like a Frankenstein, a bunch of, awful people all together to make this guy that you're supposed to not really like very much in the book. And yeah, other people. There's someone based on Ben. Um, there's there's a guy based on someone that used to be in the goth club that we used to go to, Matt the Hat, who's just like a vaguely based on him. I don't remember what he actually looked like aside from he was tall and he had a hat. Uh, there's let's see. There's Alice's friend Madison, who is a realtor. She is based on this actress who was in she was in What We Do in the Shadows, and she's the neighbor's wife. And it was just like she's so pretty, and she has this wonderful hair, and I just pictured her as like this boisterous, like larger than life personality who's just like always on. And so she's not any specific person I've ever met. Um, Jay is based on this guy from the repair shop,
Hmm.
which we watch constantly. And he's got a Cockney accent and these big ass glasses and this hat. And we've been joking that he's a rabbit puka, and that the repair shop is a secret front for boggins that repair things. And it's all based on glamour because we played way too much White Wolf Changeling.
And
So it's all
now it's
stuff
in a
like that.
book.
And now it's in a book, and he's a real rabbit puka. And yeah, it's all things like they come from everywhere.
Let me ask you another question, and then I'll volunteer my answer. Do you
Hmm.
find your characters as you're writing them being influenced by people that you are close to or experiencing, more lately? Do your characters change slightly based on recent input?
Hmm. I gotta think about that. I think the established characters are pretty much as they are. Occasionally, I will encounter people who then become part of the book. Like if someone is really, like, because I said I work customer service, so if someone's not very nice on the phone, they might become a not very nice person in a book. If someone is really helpful, there's a guy, like one of my superiors at work who's really helpful became a character in the book. I have not told him that, so he has no idea. But the guy who works at the zoo, who runs the carousel, is named Troy, and I was just like, I'll just use the name Troy and his vague description. So Troy got into the book because he's just been so helpful at work. Because really, everybody, all my coworkers, are really helpful. With very few exceptions. So it's just like, I'm putting Troy in the book. He helped me out one day, and I had to write somebody into that scene, and I was like, okay, Troy, you're going in the book. But I don't know if anyone's really been like changed the way an established character already is.
That's fair. I think I find myself if someone is close enough. So, for example, like in the first book, in my first series, we've got
Mm-hmm.
Amy the Goth Witch.
Yes.
Amy, uh, you remember Allison, right? From college,
Yeah.
stage manager.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, yeah, Allison. If you're watching, which you're not, but if you were, uh,
She watches this later.
yeah, Amy was loosely based on her.
Oh, okay.
But then
Hmm.
like a decade goes by, and then I finish the book, and then when I'm writing the second one, uh, Amy is very much influenced by my partner Kat,
Okay.
and that's just kind of how it went. In that the personality wasn't dissimilar, and as
Hmm.
the character grew, I found myself, kind of considering it more of an insert of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just kind of worked out that way. But like I have other
Okay.
established characters that haven't changed based on people that I know. Like um uh actually I can't talk too much about it because it's a spoiler, but like one of the characters that gets a long redemption arc that you're aware of, like
Mm-hmm.
he's not really based on anybody. And even as he
Okay.
grew and changed, that change wasn't based on any real people. So it's
Hmm.
kind of interesting um to see that.
Yeah, I always like mentally cast someone in
Hmm.
a role when I'm reading a book. So when I read your first book, I actually I cast someone completely different in the role of Amy, and it's someone we both knew named Ashley,
Oh, yeah.
who definitely should not be Amy. But that was just what the image that came to mind. And the person who got the redemption arc was that Ashley's partner for a very long time, Michael.
Right.
And that has stuck in my head and probably shouldn't. It, like, that's probably not at all who you were picturing, but that was who first popped into my head
Oh,
when I read
yeah.
the first book. And now I can't get rid of that image because that's just what my brain does. I just cast someone, an actor, someone I already know when I'm reading something because my brain is very visual. So there's always like an image of what somebody looks like. And if it's not a specific actor, then it's someone that I know in real life.
Does it help to
And I'm
tell you
sorry.
that it's definitely not him?
I know you've tried. What's weird though is I can't picture the receptionist guy
Oh,
as
Lester?
anybody. Yeah, I can't picture Lester as anyone.
That's because Lester, if I was going to give you a visual for like Lester, I mean, I I mean Lester's, if I had to just give like an offhand description of Lester, Lester is just like an adorable twink. Like that's just
Okay.
Lester. That's who he is.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I don't think Lester's based on anyone either. So like
Okay.
for all that I came into this thinking to myself, yeah, I totally base my characters on real people. The answer is like I really apparently don't necessarily.
Oh. Yeah, it's I've got a bunch of side characters. There's a scene at a tea, like, because yeah, Alice in Wonderland, they have a tea party, and there's a whole bunch of people there, and I don't necessarily have a mental image for any of them. But there are multiple people there, so I just had to be like, here are the people she's introduced. They all have names. They have their own rich inner lives. I don't necessarily have a mental image for most of them, but there had to be people. So I had to give them names and jobs and make them interesting. And then I didn't really put a lot of extra thought into that because they're not going to really come up again. Um, but they existed in that scene. They were people who she interacted with, but like I didn't do a whole like big background for every one of them because I was just getting from point A to point B at that point. I don't have to create a whole backstory for every single person. Um,
Nor should you, frankly. Like it
that
that
seems a bit obsessive.
well, that's actually that's a I would say that's a bit of a like pitfall that people will run
Hmm.
into is um you 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 have to there has to be a purpose for characters that are introduced. And
Hmm.
if they don't serve much of a purpose, then they shouldn't get much airtime because
Yeah.
then the reader will assume that this character is important, and then when they are not, then you have inadvertently messed with the expectation. Unless you're doing it on purpose, you've messed with the expectations of the reader. So like yeah, your garden
Hmm.
party socialites I think read exactly the way that you wanted, is that they were
Hmm.
sweet but superficial and no one ever needs to see them again, and like
Yeah.
that
There's
works out fine.
the only one who really gets much of a description is only there to like highlight Alice's insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the entire reason why she's described, is so Alice can be like, what am I even doing with these people? Because this is a literal like fashion week model
Oh
who was
yeah.
introducing me to everybody. And I'm like, I'm just this schmo who's like walking in a skater dress with pockets. And meanwhile, the model is like, oh my God, you have pockets? Like, it just realized like it's highlighting Alice's insecurities, but it's also like the model is like, but your life is also cool. And it's just kind of bringing everybody to the same level. Whereas, like, I hoped that in the scene it would kind of show that like everyone has something that they see other people having and they wish they had. So I don't know if that really came through, but that was kind of what I was highlighting there.
I think it did, but so what's I think it comes down to characters aren't just about inspiration. Characters are
Mm-hmm.
also about archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Like oftentimes characters aren't they exist to serve a purpose, and that purpose is archetypal or
Yeah.
archetypal. How do
Mm-hmm.
you however you say that.
I think it's
in that
archetypal.
like you've got your reluctant hero, you've got your
Mm-hmm.
you got your bad guy, you've got your tragic backstory sidekick, you've got
Mm-hmm.
so like there's there's a lot of archetypes that characters that get built on, and I suppose the only difference there is, so like if you build a character based on a real person, there's some kind of grounding in reality. And if you
Mm-hmm.
build your character based on an archetype, I think often there's the challenge of ensuring that the the character becomes more than one dimensional, because
Yes.
the archetype is mostly one dimensional. If every villain is frothing at the mouth and screaming from the rooftops, then it's going to get old really fast. But if you mix the two,
Mm-hmm.
if you take an archetype, you've got our tragic backstory scientist villain, and then you've got Bob from The Office, who you really. Oh, I meant to say, did you know there's a word? So, just a total tangent. Do you know there's a word for taking someone and putting them in your novel?
I didn't know there was a word for it.
It's called Tuckerization.
Okay.
I don't actually know why, but I participated in the Indie Fantasy Addicts, which is a great indie fantasy reader group. I participated in one of their giveaways and they had authors offering Tuckerization to people as a prize. And I was like, all right, new word even for me.
So you don't know the origin?
No, I need to look it up. I could
I
do it
need to find
right
out.
now. Maybe I should do it right now. But so yeah,
I'm
it's
curious.
you've got Bob from The Office that you're Tuckerizing,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the archetype of the tragic genius villain, and you mash those two together, and you're going to get something surprisingly real, I think. Which is, I think,
Yeah.
a lot of the ways that it's a good way to like build characters is what's the archetype, but then what connects them to reality beyond the one dimension of their driving purpose.
Hmm. That might help answer some questions that I'm trying to answer for book two. I'm yeah. I'm still in the question mark phasing part
Hmm.
between steel underpants and profit. So yeah,
Well, I mean
I'm getting there.
that's
Hmm?
why one of the pieces of advice that I've heard, and I don't have a problem with this because I do this anyway, is if you want to understand a character, give them something to eat. Like, what kind
you
of, well, no, I mean,
you
seriously,
just do that because you're a habit.
I do, but so that's what I mean is like no one needed to tell me to do that. I just did that
Hmm.
anyway. But for people who aren't hobbits, uh, it's, oh, I've got this character and I don't know what to do with them and I don't know how they feel about things. But like, what happens when I sit them down and think about what they would want to eat and or drink, and suddenly you get a facet of a character that you hadn't really considered before, and it
Hmm.
humanizes them in some kind of way. And that, like, are
Okay.
they a coffee or a tea person? Are they a sweets or a salty person? Are they, can you talk to them before they've had their morning cup of coffee? you know and it's those kinds of little tiny human details that can take uh, you know a, a character that's just chewing the scenery in every chapter that they're in, and turn it down just a little bit to figure out, like, who they are outside of again their driving need for revenge, lust, love, whatever.
And now they have a French fry.
And now they have, when you give a raccoon a French fry, um,
Okay.
that's how the second book starts. By the way, is when you give a raccoon a French fry.
Oh, the second
Yeah,
Corbin Pierce
the
book.
second Corbin Pierce book
Amazing.
starts with if you give a raccoon a French fry.
He's gonna want a large Coca-Cola.
Not that, but yeah, it is.
Don't give your raccoons Coca-Cola.
Did you? So I'm gonna go on a total
I
tangent.
did see the drunk raccoon in the back of the liquor store. Of course, I thought of Scratch.
I was so
He looked
happy.
too small to be Scratch.
I mean, he was laid out, and that was like
That's true.
that was a human-sized bathroom. For anyone that doesn't
Mm.
know what we're talking about, there was a recent news story about a raccoon that broke into a liquor store, gorged itself on snacks, and then broke into the booze before passing out in the bathroom. It was the most perfect news story I have ever seen, especially given the horrible news cycles lately. I needed a drunk raccoon in my life, and I didn't even know it until it happened.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
epic.
look, that's a human-sized toilet. That's a decent-sized raccoon.
That is a decent sized
I
raccoon.
think you're right though. That is not a scratch-sized
It
raccoon, but
doesn't look
like,
Scratch sized. I picture
yeah.
Scratch being really hefty. I had like this formative moment when I was a kid. We were coming back from dinner, the mall, I don't know where, and there were like 5 raccoons in front of our house. Um, and they were all easily each of them bigger than me. Now, I've always been tiny, but I was at least 7 at the time, and each raccoon was larger than I was. They were so round. They were so cute. They looked really soft, and I wanted to pet them. And I was told in no uncertain terms that I was not allowed to, and bad things would happen to me. But I have since that moment wanted to pet a raccoon.
I still do. I still
I still
do.
do, if not friend by friend
My
shaped.
friend shaped. Yeah,
And I have gotten very close to raccoons since then because I worked in a wildlife rescue or volunteered in a wildlife rescue many years later, and I got to see a little baby raccoon getting a bath that it didn't
mm,
want.
oh,
And that I didn't get to touch it because you have to have shots before that, but I did get to watch a baby raccoon get a bath, and it was very, very cute. So at least I got that.
yeah. Just a reminder, folks at home: do not approach wild rabies vector animals. Just don't do it unless they're possums, because possums can't get rabies.
Yes.
Yeah,
The odds are incredibly slim that a raccoon, really any wild animal, will have rabies, but the odds are there. It
yeah.
does exist, and you might actually
Non-zero.
get non-zero. It's still a possibility.
So back to Tuckerization
Back to
real
talking.
quick.
Yes. Did you look
Tuckerization
it up?
was based on Wilson Tucker.
Okay.
He was apparently an American science fiction writer, and a fan and fanzine editor who often used his friends' names for minor characters in his writing.
Mm, okay.
So that became, popular from Wilson Tucker. So yeah, Tuckerization. Uh,
Hmm.
Everyone's gotten a new brain wrinkle today. You're welcome.
My brain's so wrinkly. Unlike my face.
Because you're parfait,
Because I'm part Fae.
and
Yeah.
also have a connective tissue disorder.
Yeah. Well, we don't talk about that.
Just like we don't
Um,
talk about the mullet, Laurie.
okay, fine. Uh, checkmate. Whatever. Um, yeah, I'm also amazed. I'd say a lot of inspiration comes late at night when I don't know. I have my best ideas while I'm brushing my teeth before bed. And it happened like I don't know when it was. 'Cause it was shortly before possibly our last one of these that I had the idea for like how the science works of um I don't have good ideas in the shower ever. I do not have shower thoughts. I have the dumbest possible ideas in the shower. But brushing my teeth late at night was when I had the idea of how the science works, of the DNA of a human and a fae, and like literally the like biochemical science of how that works was while I was brushing my teeth before bed. This morning I woke up and my first thought after waking up was literally Caitlin Stark do 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 Caitlin Stark do 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 Sansa Stark. Yeah, that was my brain when I woke up this morning. I do not have good thoughts in the morning.
I,
What made you laugh just now?
because I'm
I'm
imagining
scared.
you brushing your teeth while trying to take a voice note about your like. Remember brushing the DNA. Like I'm imagining you trying to do it because when I
I
have
don't do voice
thoughts
notes.
in the car,
Okay.
I take voice notes.
Oh,
Um,
I've never done a voice note.
what I do is I basically I had to keep it brief because it won't take too much text. But what I do is I set a reminder for a later time to take a note about X. So it's like if I have an idea about let's say in the Corbin book 2 there's house spirits, and I want to like make a note about one of them. I'd be like, hey, remind me at 9 p.m. to make a note about the house spirits doing the thing, and that's it.
Mm,
And
okay.
then I'll, because I'm driving and I don't want to like, I'm not going to write War and Peace in the book in the car. Um, so yeah, I get a lot of thoughts while I'm driving. I think
Okay.
not a lot of shower thoughts, though not zero shower thoughts. Definitely no toothbrushing thoughts. So like that's
That's the
different.
trigger for me.
Yeah.
That's brushing my teeth is when I have my good thoughts. And then when I'm done brushing my teeth, I go into the living room where my husband's watching TV and he gets to hear my brilliant thoughts. They're not all diamonds, but
They can't all be.
that sometimes they are. So I'm brushing my teeth. My cat's in there. Miles is in the bathroom with me, sequestered, so Natasha can have her wet food. And then we come out of the bathroom, and I tell Sean whatever my brilliant thought was, and he gets to just sit there and stare at me like the woman in the meme with the blanket. And I'm there explaining the thought, and it's that meme exactly. Um, and sometimes I have thoughts like as I'm trying to fall asleep, I'll have a thought, and I have the Samsung pen that the Note phone with the little pen,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't want to turn my phone on entirely, so I'll just take the little pen out and scribble on the screen, and it'll save it as a note. And sometimes they're brilliant, and then sometimes they're things like Pikachu, which was a drawing I did one night that was a cross between Pac-Man and Pikachu. That's still in my notes somewhere. But yeah, that's when it's a scribbled little half note of like you had this germ of a thought and develop that tomorrow. But yeah, it's almost always brushing my teeth that it triggers thoughts.
So not to wrap us up, but we only have a couple minutes left. Um,
Okay.
I want to talk about something briefly because we've got some exciting news for
Okay.
people who are fans of our work or would love to be fans of our work. So
Oh
we
yes.
Caffeinated Terrier Press has a novella-sized anthology coming out on December 8th. The title is
Oh
A
yes.
Season for Stories, based on the idea that some stories can only be told during certain seasons. And this season for this anthology is winter. So
Mm-hmm.
all of the stories, of which there are four stories, uh, are they either take place in winter, are told during the winter, or
Mm-hmm.
feature winter prominently in them. And that's going to be available in ebook and paperback on December 8th. And the ebook is unlike most of our other books that are exclusive to Kindle Unlimited. These are going to be widely available because they're also kind of it's an anthology that we're going to be able to use as a bit of a taster for getting to know the work of the four authors. So it's myself, it's Laurie, it's Tall Good, and David Nemitz.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the authors who contributed stories to the anthology. I do hope we can do another one. Honestly, thinking about it, I'd love it if we did another like a different season for stories, but like then it
Mm.
would be summer or fall. But we can always talk about that. So yeah, I want to leave us today on the note of please go check out our anthology. The ebook is available for pre-order now. It's a season for stories, a Caffeinated Terrier Press anthology. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, but will be widely available after the initial publication on December 8th.
And I should have saved that cover because I was very clever and I figured out how to save my book cover backwards so it would read forwards on this video.
There you go.
which there, took away all the little widgets so you can see my book cover the correct way. Also, because I lent my advanced copy to my niece so she could read it because she was over for Thanksgiving. Um, but yeah, I did not think to do that with a season for stories, and I should. I'm very, very excited about my story because it's a gay love story with Isaac Newton in it, and it has science, and it's wonderful, and I love it so much, and it's lovely and sad, and I love it. I'm so happy with how it came out.
It's a good story. It's a good story. I mean, also like my contribution, The Thief of Joy, is also the short story
Mm,
I share as my reader magnet.
mhm,
So a lot of my readers may have read that story, but they will not have read the others, and so people should pick it up. But this is also the first time that The Thief of Joy will be available in any print media, so
mhm.
that's going to be fun.
Yes, and it's a great introduction into the world of the devil you know.
Absolutely. So, Laurie, before we head off, tell people where they can find you and your book.
I just closed it.
You
Why did
don't
I
have to show
close
them
it?
the cover. You
I
just
don't
have
have
to
to
tell
show them
them.
the cover. You can find my book on Amazon under my name, Laurie Nielsen, uh, Down the Rabbit Hole. It's got the white rabbit on the cover. It's the only one that's out so far, but there will be more. It's the first in the series. And it's available on Kindle Unlimited and paperback.
Excellent. Yep. And Liminal Spaces, Book One.
Liminal Spaces, book one. Yes.
All right. And I am Ben Shankman. You can find my work at benshankman.com. All of my work is available through Kindle Unlimited as ebooks. My first series, The Devil You Know, is 3 books, starting with My Boss is the Devil. My latest release is Let Sleeping Gods Lie, which is the first book and current standalone in a series about Corbin Pierce. And I also co-authored a fun little dungeon core fantasy adventure called Underleveled with my good friend AJ Alexander's.
I hear an alarm.
Yeah, hold on. I need to move the puzzle piece because apparently I have not moved enough. All right. So yeah, please go check out Laurie's work. You can also find her at author.laurienielsen.com. And again, I'm at benshankman.com, and we are 2 members of Caffeinated Terrier Press. If you're in Connecticut or Massachusetts and you're interested in finding out more about our Authors Co-op and how we support each other as authors, please check us out at caffeinatedterrierpress.com or reach out to either of us. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.